In Texas, a housewife has been found guilty of murdering her 5-year-old son, Damon, and could now get the death penalty.
Venturing into the haunting world of death row, there are stories of young women ensnared by its grip. The verdict for Tiffany Cole, accused of murdering a St. Nicholas couple by burying them alive in Georgia, has been decided by the Florida Supreme Court to be a death sentence.
But please remember that I didn't do this. I'm not the monster that created this, but I am sorry I met him.
Here are the stories of 10 youngest women currently rotting in death row. These young lives once brimmed with potential, but now they stand at the brink of fate, raising profound questions about justice, the circumstances that led them here, and the potential for human transformation. Join us on this emotional journey as we navigate their compelling narratives, shedding light on the complexities of crime and punishment. Number 10. Paula Cooper. Paula Cooper's life was a complex and tragic tale that unfolded over several decades, leaving an indelible mark on the criminal justice system and the individuals who crossed her path. Born in 1969, Paula's life took a dark turn when, at the age of 15, she became involved in a heinous crime that would eventually make her the youngest person on death row in Indiana. In 1986, Paula Cooper was sentenced to die by electrocution for her role in the murder of Ruth Pelkey, a 77-year-old Bible school teacher. It was a crime that shocked the nation, not only because of its brutality, but also due to Paula's young age. Her case became a focal point for debate on the morality and effectiveness of the death penalty, particularly when applied to juveniles. At the heart of the controversy was the question of whether a 15-year-old should be held accountable to the same extent as an adult. In 1986, Indiana law allowed for defendants as young as 10 years old to be tried as adults and potentially face the death penalty. This raised concerns about the fairness and appropriateness of such severe punishment for someone so young. Many believed that Paula's sentence was racially motivated, highlighting the disparities in how the criminal justice system treated individuals based on their race. The case drew global attention and support from diverse quarters. Amnesty International initiated a campaign for Paula's clemency, gaining 2 million petitions. Even Pope John Paul II sent a Vatican emissary to plead for Paula's reprieve, sparking a worldwide movement advocating for mercy and understanding in the face of a troubling crime.
Driving the butcher knife through her chest, the conditions were so horrific.
Unexpectedly, Bill Pelkey, the grandson of victim Ruth Pelk, emerged as one of Paula Cooper's most ardent supporters. Despite witnessing the aftermath of the murder, Bill, a devout Christian and Vietnam veteran, believed in forgiveness and reconciliation. He couldn't forget Paula Cooper's grandfather's courtroom tears, sensing that his grandmother, Ruth, wouldn't have wanted Paula executed. Bill's journey towards forgiveness and compassion was extraordinary. Denied permission to visit Paula in prison, they maintained a years-long correspondence. When Paula's death sentence was commuted to 60 years in July 1989, Bill expressed relief with a heartfelt "Praise the Lord." By Paula's release on June 17, 2013, both had transformed. Paula, spending her entire adult life behind bars, earned her GED degrees and support from fellow inmates and activists. Bill, now in his 60s, became an advocate against the death penalty, founding the organization Journey of Hope, From Violence to Healing, led by crime victims opposing capital punishment. Paula's re-entry into society posed challenges, with Bill concerned about her housing and employment.
I mean, I don't care if I have to sweep floors, wash dishes, or flip hamburgers. I'm going to take whatever I can get.
Media attention raised fears, and there were reports of death threats. While she received some assistance, Paula still faced uncertainty navigating the outside world. Melissa Marble, known as Precious, played a crucial role in Paula's post-prison life. They met in 1993 in prison, and Paula's capacity for compassion extended even to those who had committed grave offenses. Paula's journey to rebuild her life was marked by resilience and hard work. Despite never having held a job outside prison, she found employment at Five Guys and eventually became a manager. Later, she became a legal assistant at the Indiana Federal Community Defenders, working alongside Monica Foster, her attorney since she was a teenager.
She understood the clients that we represent and their fears, their vulnerabilities, their loved ones.
Paula's willingness to speak openly about her experiences became significant. She engaged with college classes, sharing her unique perspective on the criminal justice system and the importance of second chances. Paula's suicide left a void, surprising those who knew her boundless optimism. Despite the support network, she carried unresolved trauma, stemming from her abusive childhood and alleged assaults by guards during her time on death row. Her extended solitary confinement, known as lock, for 3 years exacerbated her mental health struggles. Paula remained haunted by her crime, unable to find forgiveness within herself. 2 weeks after her death, Bill Pelk returned for a private memorial service in Paula's honor. He acknowledged the system's strict separation between victims and offenders, leaving no room for reconciliation. In the aftermath of Paula Cooper's passing, her legacy lived on in the hearts and minds of those she had touched. Bill Pelkey continued to champion the cause of forgiveness and the abolition of the death penalty, carrying forward the message that Paula had inspired. Her story had challenged societal perceptions, urging us to see individuals not solely through the lens of their worst actions, but as complex beings capable of transformation. Paula Cooper's life was a poignant reminder that the path to healing and redemption is often fraught with struggles and setbacks. It called upon us to acknowledge the importance of mental health care for those impacted by the criminal justice system, to advocate for fair and just sentencing practices, and to embrace the possibility of forgiveness and reconciliation, even in the face of unimaginable pain. Number 9. Tiffany Ann Cole. Tiffany Ann Cole was born in 1981, and she gained notoriety for her involvement in a terrible double murder in Jacksonville, Florida, in 2005. She was connected to Carol and Reggie Sumner, an older couple she had known when they were neighbors in South Carolina. Sadly, they met again when the Sumners moved to Jacksonville. Things took a dark turn when Cole, along with her boyfriend Michael James Jackson, and their partners Alan Wade and Bruce Kent Nixon Jr., planned to rob the elderly couple. They dug a grave in a remote spot in Georgia with the intention of burying the victims while still alive. In July 2005, Cole and Jackson waited outside Sumner's home while Wade and Nixon entered. They disconnected the phone, scared the couple with a toy gun, tied them up, and got their bank information. Then, they forced the Sumners into their car's trunk and drove to the prepared grave site where they buried them alive. Cole's trial in October 2007 resulted in a shocking verdict. She was found guilty of first-degree murder, with most jurors supporting the death penalty. In 2008, she received 2 death sentences for the murders and a life sentence for the kidnappings. Her case sparked a debate about her level of responsibility. Cole claimed she was controlled by Jackson, but the court saw her as actively involved. The use of the heinous, atrocious, and cruel factor in her sentencing caused legal issues. Although it was later considered a mistake, her convictions stood on other grounds. Because it's rare for women to receive the death penalty in Florida, Cole's case brought up questions about gender and how society views female criminals. Beyond her case, it reignited the broader discussion about the morality and ethics of the death penalty. While seeking justice for the Sumner family, forgiveness was also considered. Number 8. Shanda Sherers Killers. The case of Shanda Sherers Killers is a chilling and deeply disturbing chapter in the annals of true crime. This tragic event unfolded in 1992 in Madison, Indiana, and it sent shockwaves through the nation, shedding light on the horrifying depths of teenage jealousy, peer pressure, and cruelty. Shanda Renee Sherer, a 12-year-old girl, was an ordinary preteen living in the heartland of Indiana. She had dreams, aspirations, and a zest for life that was tragically cut short. Her life took a nightmarish turn when she crossed paths with Melinda Loveless, a 16-year-old girl who harbored a burning and irrational jealousy towards Shanda. The roots of this tragedy can be traced back to a tumultuous relationship between Melinda Loveless and a girl named Amanda Heverin. Melinda was convinced that Shanda Sherer had come between her and Amanda, whom she considered her girlfriend. The jealousy Melinda felt was all-consuming, and it ultimately led her down a dark and sinister path. On the fateful night of January 10, 1992, Melinda, along with 3 other teenage girls, Lori Tackett, Hope Rippey, and Toni Lawrence, hatched a gruesome plan to eliminate Shanda Sherer. They lured her out of her home under the guise of reconciliation, hoping to mend their fractured friendship. However, their intentions were far from benevolent. Once Shandaw was in their car, she became the victim of unspeakable horrors. The group drove her to a remote, secluded area, where they subjected her to a night of unimaginable torment. The cruelty they inflicted upon Shandaw was beyond comprehension. She was brutally beaten, stabbed repeatedly, and in a final act of sadistic cruelty, doused with gasoline and set on fire while still alive. The motivations behind this heinous act were a toxic cocktail of jealousy, peer pressure, and a shocking absence of empathy. Melinda Loveless, in particular, had a deeply troubled history. She had been institutionalized for psychiatric issues and had a penchant for violence. Her obsession with Shandaw's perceived role in her relationship with Amanda pushed her to plan and execute this unspeakable crime. The aftermath of Shandaw Sherers' murder sent shockwaves through the community and the nation. The perpetrators were swiftly apprehended, and their trials exposed the horrifying details of their crime. All 4 girls were found guilty of various charges, including murder, and were sentenced to lengthy prison terms. Melinda Loveless received the harshest sentence, a 60-year prison term, which she is still serving. This case raises a multitude of questions and concerns about the factors that can drive teenagers to commit such heinous acts. It underscores the critical importance of early intervention and mental health support for troubled youth. It serves as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked jealousy and the urgent need for society to address the root causes of such senseless violence. The impact of Shandaw Sherers' murder extended far beyond the courtroom. Her family worked tirelessly to keep her memory alive by raising awareness about teen violence. They emphasized the importance of fostering empathy and understanding among young people. The murder of Shandaw Sherer at the hands of her teenage peers is a deeply disturbing and haunting one. This again shows the destructive power of jealousy, peer pressure, and unchecked emotions among young people. Number 7. Taylor Parker. Taylor Parker's name has become synonymous with the chilling and horrifying events that led her to death row. The story of Taylor Parker is not just a tale of criminality, but a complex narrative that raises profound questions about the American criminal justice system. The harrowing journey to death row for Taylor Parker began in 2020, when she was convicted of a brutal and senseless murder that sent shockwaves across the nation. The victim in this case was Savannah Gray Wind, a young pregnant woman living in Fargo, North Dakota. Gray Wind's murder and the gruesome circumstances surrounding it would become a haunting chapter in the annals of criminal history. What distinguishes this case from many others is the shocking nature of the crime itself. Taylor Parker not only took the life of Savannah Gray Wind, but committed an act of unspeakable horror by abducting her unborn child from her womb. This horrifying detail added an additional layer of macabre cruelty to an already gut-wrenching story.
Parker killed the pregnant mother and cut her unborn baby from her womb.
The subsequent investigation and trial were marked by the presentation of compelling and damning evidence. It left no room for doubt about Parker's guilt in the eyes of the court. Given the severity and brutality of the crime, Taylor Parker was sentenced to death, an exceptional punishment that is reserved for the most heinous of offenses. Taylor Parker's presence on death row has sparked intense debates about the death penalty and, more broadly, the American criminal justice system. Advocates of capital punishment argue that it serves as a deterrent and a form of retribution for the most heinous acts. They contend that it offers a sense of closure and justice for victims' families. However, opponents of the death penalty raise significant concerns. They question the risk of wrongful convictions, the ethical dilemmas of state-sanctioned execution, and the disparity in its application across different demographics. Number 6. Emelia Lily Carr. In the tragic case of the murder of Heather Strong, Emelia Lily Carr's involvement sent shockwaves through Marion County, Florida. Heather Strong, a young woman with a bright future ahead, met a horrifying fate in February 2009. Her life was cut short, leaving her family devastated. Emelia Lily Carr found herself in a complicated love triangle with Strong, and this raised suspicion in a particularly brutal crime. People were questioning her involvement due to the complex relationship dynamics. Carr vehemently denied her involvement, claiming her statements were coerced during the investigation. Nevertheless, on December 2010, she was convicted and sentenced to death by lethal injection, joining a small group of women on death row in Florida. In March 2009, while in custody at Marion County Jail, Emelia Lily Carr gave birth to her fourth child. As a result, her older 3 children were placed in the custody of her family. Her daughter, fathered by Joshua Fulgham, was later adopted by another family. This added another layer of complexity to Carr's already tumultuous life, with her children's fates forever altered due to her involvement in the tragic case of Heather Strong. The case of Heather Strong and Emelia Lily Carr remains a poignant and tragic chapter in Marion County's history. It exemplifies the complexities of criminal investigations, legal proceedings, and the intricate relationships that can lead to heinous crimes. The shifting nature of Carr's sentence from death to life imprisonment adds another layer of complexity to an already intricate narrative, leaving questions and discussions that continue to resonate within the community. The legal saga continued when, on May 19, 2017, Emelia Carr's sentence was changed to life without parole. This marked a significant turning point in her case. Meanwhile, Joshua Fulgham, Strong's husband and Carr's co-accused, faced a similar fate. He was also convicted of first-degree murder and kidnapping, ultimately receiving 2 consecutive life sentences for his role in Heather Strong's tragic demise. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. We're taking a glimpse into the lives of the youngest women currently on death row. You'll agree, it's a subject that's both intriguing and somber. Take a moment to look at the image displayed on your screen right now. These young women are facing some of the harshest sentences imaginable, and it raises a lot of questions. What could lead someone so young to such a dire fate? You might notice the youthfulness in their expressions, but behind those eyes lie stories that have led them down this dark path. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes even the most unexpected individuals can find themselves in situations we can hardly fathom. Let's open up the discussion here. What are your thoughts on this image? Does it make you wonder about the circumstances that brought these young women to death row? Share your insights and opinions in the comment section below, and let's engage in a thoughtful conversation about this complex and sobering issue. Number 5. Robin Lero. Robin Lero is a name that might not ring a bell for everyone, but her story is one of the most captivating and chilling tales in crime. Born in 1965 in New Mexico, Ro's life took a dark turn when she was convicted of a horrific crime that shook the small town of Boise, Idaho, in the early 1990s. In 1992, Robin Lero was accused of setting fire to her own home, resulting in the deaths of her 2 children, Josie and Michael, as well as her husband, Randy. At first glance, it appeared to be a tragic accident, but investigators soon became suspicious of Ro's behavior. She was known for her troubled relationships and a history of fire-related insurance claims, which raised red flags. Ro's trial was a media sensation. Prosecutors argued that she intentionally set the fire to collect a hefty insurance payout. They portrayed her as a cold and calculating murderer. However, Ro maintained her innocence throughout the trial, insisting that she loved her family and would never harm them. In the end, Robin Lero was found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. Her case went through numerous appeals, with supporters arguing that she was wrongly convicted. They pointed to potential flaws in the investigation and inconsistencies in the evidence. Her case continues to be a subject of debate and intrigue in the true crime community, leaving many questions unanswered about what truly happened on that fateful night. Number 4. Samantha Allen. Samantha Allen's case has been a tragic and disturbing one, capturing significant attention due to the heinous nature of the crime. In 2011, Allen and her husband subjected her 10-year-old cousin, Aim Deal, to unimaginable abuse. They forced her into a small, non-air-conditioned footlocker during a sweltering July night, resulting in her tragic death. Samantha Allen faced numerous charges, including felony murder, conspiracy to commit child abuse, negligent child abuse, and intentional child abuse. She was ultimately sentenced to death for the felony murder conviction, and received a total of 76 years in prison for the other charges. Her appeal raised 22 issues, but the Arizona Supreme Court upheld her death sentence, with only one issue related to an aggravated sentence for negligent child abuse being sent back to lower courts for resentencing. The court's ruling clarified that the state must provide 2 aggravating factors for aggravated sentencing, which it failed to do in this case. One key issue in the appeal was the Enman-Tyson requirement, a standard used in Arizona for imposing the death penalty when multiple individuals are involved in a killing. Samantha Allen claimed that it was her husband who physically put Aim Deal in the box and locked it, arguing that she was not a major participant. However, the court's ruling emphasized that her active participation in Deal's punishment, including blocking her from leaving the room, was sufficient for a jury to conclude that she played a significant role in the killing. The case revealed a history of repeated abuse suffered by Aimee Deal, including being subjected to dog feces, beatings with a paddle, and other forms of violence. Placing her in the footlocker, which was significantly smaller than her, had become a horrifying routine. Both Samantha Allen and her husband initially claimed that Deal's death resulted from a game of hide-and-seek gone wrong. However, her story changed over time, with admissions that they had made Deal perform backbends and that she allowed her husband to lock Deal in the box because they believed she had stolen a popsicle. In addition to Samantha Allen and her husband, other family members, including her mother and grandmother, were convicted of child abuse in connection with this case. They are currently serving lengthy prison sentences. Number 3. Darlie Lynn Peck Routier. On the fateful night of June 6, 1996, tragedy struck the Routier family in Rolette, Texas, when Damon and Devin Routier were brutally murdered. Their mother, Darlie Routier, placed a frantic call to 911, reporting an intruder who had attacked her and her sons. However, the events that unfolded that night raised numerous questions and cast doubt on her innocence. Initially, Darlie's account of the intruder seemed plausible, with signs of a break-in, including a cut window screen. Yet inconsistencies began to emerge. The murder weapon turned out to be a knife from her own kitchen, suggesting the possibility that there was no intruder. Valuables in plain sight remained untouched, making robbery an unlikely motive. Forensic analysis further fueled suspicions. Blood spatter patterns didn't align with her version of events. Her nightshirt bore bloodstains consistent with self-infliction, not an attacker's actions. Moreover, her blood was found near the kitchen sink, raising questions about her injury's authenticity. The presence of fiberglass rods on a kitchen knife matched those on the garage window screen, implying that the supposed intruder had access to the house all along. With her husband Darren accounting for their infant upstairs, Darlie became the prime suspect. The 911 call raised additional concerns. Darlie appeared strangely composed and mentioned her concern about fingerprints on the knife, an unusual detail for a distraught mother. Her behavior after the call, failing to follow paramedics and displaying unconventional grief, fueled suspicions. The infamous silly string video, where Darlie seemed celebratory at her son's gravesite, became a focal point of the case. Prosecutors argued it showed her lack of remorse and a motive, wanting her children out of the way for her desired lifestyle. The defense countered, highlighting her lack of motive and the edited nature of the video. In 1997, Darlie Routier was found guilty of Damon's murder and sentenced to death. Despite appeals and calls for DNA testing, her conviction remains. Whether Darlie is guilty or innocent, she continues to maintain her innocence from prison, leaving the perplexing case of the Routier family murders with many unanswered questions. Number 2. Angela McAnulty. When child abuse and murder comes to mind, Angela McAnulty's name is one of the names to be remembered. Born in 1969, Angela McAnulty became synonymous with a horrifying chapter in American crime history, marked by the torment and eventual death of her own daughter, Jeanette Maples, in 2009. Jeanette Maples' life was marred by an indescribable ordeal at the hands of her mother, Angela McAnulty, and stepfather, Richard McAnulty. The young girl endured relentless physical abuse, prolonged starvation, and unbearable isolation. The extent of her suffering defies comprehension, culminating tragically in her death at the tender age of 15. Angela McAnulty's arrest in December 2009 marked the beginning of a legal saga that would shock the nation. She ultimately pleaded guilty to charges of aggravated murder, making her the first woman in Oregon's history to be sentenced to death. Richard McAnulty, her stepfather, also pleaded guilty to lesser charges and received a 25-year prison sentence. McAnulty had a tough upbringing where kids were punished by being starved and beaten. Some people thought that she was going to be a victim herself if she went to prison, like she's been through a lot. But Deputy DA Eric Hasselman had the final say, explaining why the state had to give McAnulty the death penalty. The McAnulty case cast a harsh spotlight on the failures of Child Protective Services in preventing Jeanette's abuse and untimely demise. It raised profound questions about the effectiveness of existing reporting and intervention systems, igniting a nationwide debate about how to better safeguard vulnerable children. This tragic narrative underscores the vital importance of identifying signs of child abuse and neglect within our communities. Society should be obligated to protect those who cannot protect themselves. This story proves human cruelty and how dark a person's mind can become. Number 1. Linda Anita Cardi. Linda Cardi, often referred to as the British grandma on death row, is a 63-year-old Kittian American and former schoolteacher. She holds British citizenship and is currently on death row in Texas. Her conviction dates back to February 2002, when she was sentenced to death for the abduction and murder of 25-year-old Joanna Rodriguez in 2001. The heinous crime involved the intention to steal Rodriguez's newborn son, Ray. Cardi's defense claims that she was framed by drug dealers due to her prior work as an informant with the Drug Enforcement Administration. According to her account, these individuals plotted against her as they found it easier to frame her rather than outright kill her. Joanna Rodriguez was kidnapped and tragically suffocated to death. Her lifeless body was discovered in the trunk of Linda's car. Although Cardi's co-defendants in the kidnapping and murder case received prison terms, they did not face the death penalty after testifying against her. Linda Cardi is imprisoned at the Mountain View unit of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, which houses the state's female death row inmates. She has spent nearly 2 decades awaiting execution. If her sentence is carried out, Cardi would be the first female British national to be executed since Ruth Ellis in 1955, and the first British black woman to face execution in over a century. Despite the substantial evidence against her, Linda Cardi maintains her plea of innocence, steadfastly declaring herself not guilty. Her case has attracted attention and scrutiny, leading to a one-off documentary on ITV called British Grandma on Death Row with Susanna Reid. In this documentary, Susanna Reid investigates the case, traveling to Texas to meet Linda Cardi. The program includes access to police custody footage and interviews with key witnesses, shedding light on the twists and turns of this murder case. A dive back to what Cardi's life was like. In her early life, Cardi was born in St. Kitts to Anguilla parents and held British citizenship due to St. Kitts's colonial status. She later emigrated to the United States in 1982 and became a U.S. citizen. Initially, Cardi was involved in criminal activities, including impersonation of an FBI agent, for which she received a probation sentence on the condition that she work as a drug informant. While serving as an informant, Cardi assisted in making drug-related arrests. However, her involvement came to an end when she was arrested on drug charges herself. Subsequently, she was implicated in a harrowing crime in May 2001. It was on May 16 of the year that Cardi, along with 3 co-defendants, invaded a home, kidnapped a 25-year-old woman, and suffocated her to death. The victim's newborn baby was also taken. Suspicion fell on Cardi when it was revealed that she had claimed to be pregnant despite not appearing so. This led to her arrest, and she directed the police to the location of the kidnapped baby and the victim's body. During her trial, evidence indicated that Cardi had lied about being pregnant, and various witnesses testified against her. She was ultimately convicted of murder and sentenced to death by lethal injection on February 21, 2002. Despite appeals and defense claims of inadequate representation and a conspiracy against her, her conviction and death sentence were upheld through a series of legal proceedings. Her case gained attention, especially in the UK, where supporters advocated for her. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.